die on behalf of his friends.
Yeah.
And the quote training and programming was that I needed to take death on behalf of the friends of Jesus, and that was embracing death, and it's embracing spiritual death. So it's like going into death and coming out and embracing death, going into death and embracing death, and embracing spiritual death, because Satan, he's the epitome of spiritual death.
So now tie this, just bring that up and just contextualize that with the ritual killing of Mengele.
That's right. And so here, I've got a lifetime of that, and here I am on this trail out there, and here's Mengele about to be put to death, and that's like extending myself out to bring, in a way to protect him, but all I'm doing is I'm bringing into myself the spirits that are identified with him, which is identified with death. So the very, in 1979, as an adult, kind of near the end of the culmination of these things, bringing into myself, not willingly as it were, but bringing into myself the spirit of death itself from the man who was the angel of death. And as a Christian, identified with the body of Christ, being identified with spiritual death to that extent. I mean, I saw it as a seal to prevent the morning star from arising.
Wow, yeah, it's going to be a big bite for some people to take a hold of. But if you go to the Bite Show and the series we did on Jesus Christ as the bright and morning star, if you go through and you listen to that series, it's that emerging testimony as an end-time remnant that Satan was targeting in advance. Remember, Satan prepositioned himself in the land of Canaan prior to the children of Israel coming in, so that Satan knows how to preposition himself. So he's prepositioning himself for that end-time company. I mean, not just our assembly, but whoever would make up a part of this end-time army of God that would embody the Jesus Christ as the bright morning star. This particular ritual was to seal off that which would be in a representative way. The very purpose for our coming into existence is a local assembly. That's what we call our assembly Morning Star Testimony, because we desire in a representative way to make up a part of that remnant. But staying with this particular event, is there anyone else out there that could fill in as to what you remember and the part that you had in the ritual killing of Yosef Mengele?
I can.
Doug, I was there as well, and I remember the day we worked on this. I was not at Morning Star at that time. I mean, I don't think there was one as our testimony.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't a morning.
So, but I think what I remember about that ritual was that in us that would be drawn out towards wanting to be a part of that Morning Star testimony. That desire in us was then sealed in death. It's like an essence, a part of our essence, because we were there, we were participating in it. It sealed that desire in us. And I know that when I got to that and saw that, I really prayed to take back all of my humanity that was released in and through that ritual killing with him. And I also was very aware of when his spirit was being released, it was being passed on to the next in line.
What do you mean by the next in
by
line?
By Krista's father,
Okay, yeah, because there were other doctors
well,
that were trained.
And it's like I was a conduit for that. I don't want to go into a lot of details, but it's like I was a conduit of the spirits of death coming from Mengele into the next in line.
Okay, that would be his protege.
Right.
Yeah, I think there were a number, but there was one that ascended to the highest place and was incorporated into him all the protocols of Jean Piaget and Dr. Bowlby and of course Mengele, and he's still out there today. But thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to add to this?
Barbara.
Go ahead, Barbara.
It was not the same role because I had absolutely no desire to emulate Christ. I was not only not a Christian, I was a very committed and on board with my whole heart Luciferian. I was never one of these Luciferians that didn't want to do these things. I was never one of these Luciferians that in my heart of hearts knew God and wanted to be with him. I hated God. I hated God. And I hated Mengele. And I hated him when I would be submitted to torture while he sang flippin' hymns. And I hated everything he was singing about. And I hated his being, and I hated his person. And I remember being one of those that put the knife in his back. And I took into myself his hatred of mankind.
Mm.
My memories of being his protege wasn't holding a clipboard. It was holding a knife.
Yeah.
It was dissecting people while they were still alive and emulating his stone-faced that showed no emotion one way or the other.
Yes.
So I was glad to end his sorry ass of a life.
Yes.
I was glad to put the knife into his back. And it's really weird because everything that Dan was trying to protect, I simultaneously was trying to destroy. And I felt a victory actually over Dan when he died. Because it was like I rule, I won. He's dead. I mean, I know that both he and I and everyone else there, we're all just playing out our assigned roles. But I was glad to do.
Yeah. And it's hard for people to understand this. I mean, until a person works through all that which represents the dividedness and the different ways in which, whether it's you're connecting with Mengele or you're connecting with one of the members of the royal family, until all the humanity is here and allowed to come into a place where it's really in a real redemptive experience. People cannot understand this. In fact, when I'm working with people that have this history, I don't say, well, have you forgiven Dr. Mengele? What I first of all have to find out is where the rage is, where the anger is, and make sure that which represents all the dissociative anger, the dissociative rage, is fully excavated and brought forward. Otherwise, there's not going to be any healing, because anybody can say, oh, yeah, I forgive Dr. Mengele or that kind of thing, and not even touch the dissociative rage that would be there. So when people hear someone like you sharing these kinds of things, I fully understand. I say fully understand. I can, as far as I can without being in your shoes, Barbara, is that, we're dealing with probably one of the most notorious people that has ever lived. I personally believe if you were to place Hitler and Mengele side by side, Hitler would be afraid of Mengele. I really believe that. I can't prove that, but when I've read or heard of Hitler, when I've read or heard about Mengele, Mengele would have a level of power, a level of sorcery, a level of personal connection with Satan that would surpass that of Hitler. But that's just my opinion, and it's, whether it's that way or not, that's just my assessment as a counselor. We're at 8:30, and I want to ask Georgianne, would this be a good time to break to go into part 2?
Well, I wanted to bring up something.
Go ahead.
It's on a different level, Doug, but in marriages where the husband abuses the wife and beats her terribly, breaking bones, just terrible. Yeah. And she's afraid to leave him. What happens? He's all forgiving and all on his knees with a bouquet of flowers and a box of chocolates. Oh, forgive me. It'll never happen again. And they go into a honeymoon period, and then wham, it happens. Yeah. And she's terrified to leave. Yeah. It just, oh my God.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, we're not talking about ritual abuse. What we're talking about is people would say the psychology. It is the human dynamics.
Yeah.
Where in a marriage like that, there is often those who are abused marry abused people. I mean, if they have a history, if it's generational,
yes.
There's an intermarriage thing. There's an attraction. So in this situation, let's say the husband was most likely grew up in an abused abusive family, and so he's acting out all of his unresolved issues on his wife.
Yeah.
Because she's safe. He can project his anger in a way that he was never allowed to growing up. It doesn't justify it. But what happens is that there's a codependency. In other words, the wife says, well, if I could just be better, maybe he will change.
Yeah.
Or, if I just hang in here longer, or if she's a Christian, I'll continue to pray, and then he will change. Whenever there's this kind of abuse, she needs to be removed, and there needs to be a separation. I didn't say necessarily a divorce, but a separation until these issues can be resolved. Her codependency, where she's made to feel responsible in some way for his condition. So the codependency issues is what keeps that person bonded and never able to get out of the situation. There needs to be intervention when that kind of situation that you described is going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminded me of that when the lady said that, Mengele was kind and, and then he would turn and be vicious.
Yeah.
It's a similar dynamic.
Well, here's the difference. You take in a dysfunctional family or in a married person will go into a rage. That may not be calculated.
Yeah.
It's just a part of his pathology. With Mengele, he could do this and be fully conscious and know what he's doing.
Yes.
So there's a huge difference between the kind of psychological dynamics that's going on with someone like a Mengele, and then when you're talking about a dysfunctional relationship, because this goes way, way beyond just being dysfunctional.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I would say so. Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Well, this is being recorded on March 5th, 2011, Saturday, and move to part 2. And God bless everyone that's listening.